I want to take this time to invite you and your family to join me for the next half hour for Minister in Warfare for the Lord. And the title of my sermon, The Fallen Hero. You know, I'm confident that all of us at one time or another have been guilty of hero worship. And what is hero worship? Well, it's a strong or excessive admiration for a hero or a person regarded as a hero. And just what is a hero? Well, according to Webster's dictionary, a hero is a mythological or legendary figure, often of divine ancestry, who is favored by the gods, endowed with great courage and strength, and celebrated for his bold exploits. It also says that a hero is a man noted for courageous acts or nobility of purpose, especially one who has risked or sacrificed his life. A man noted for special achievements in a particular field. And for most American men, it is usually in the field of sports. But it can also apply to other fields as well, such as politics, business, and religion. You name the field, and usually you can find someone you can admire for their great exploits in that field, and that someone can become your alter ego. They having a skill or talent that secretly you wish you could possess on the same level that they excel at, and though you may not have met them personally, yet you feel you are an intimate friend of them, and a constant companion whenever they display their talent on the football field or basketball court, or in whatever area they excel at. And you may get to the point where you feel that you are their number one fan. In a way, it's like what happened a number of years ago when the Chicago Bulls were at the apex of success, having won 6 NBA titles. And it was like every time we would see Michael Jordan dribbling the basketball down the court, and when he would go up for one of his famous jump shots and make it, it was like we were making that shot with him. As if a spiritual and physical osmosis had taken place, and we actually felt the thrill of making that shot with Michael Jordan. Here we have grown men reminiscing and reliving their childhood again, remembering playing basketball on the school playground. Yes, that represents one of the progressive phases of hero worshiping for most men. But the inception of hero worshiping usually starts at a much younger age. And in most cases, it starts between the ages of 3 and 6. And their first hero is usually their father. This happens if the father has taken an active role in the young boy's life. And when the father assumes that responsibility, he will become his son's first hero. And many of the attributes that he sees in his father will be emerged and incorporated into his personality. And although Dad will always remain his hero, but as he grows older, especially between the ages of 10 through 12, he will begin to seek other heroes. And usually it's in the field of sports. And he will suddenly want to play football and be the star quarterback like Tom Brady of the New England Patriots, or the star basketball star of the Cleveland Cavaliers, LeBron James. And it's highly probable that they will have their photo on the wall of their room, and each day he will say to himself as he looks at that photo, someday I am going to be where he is, and I will be the hero and the star. And I will imagine it's not bad for young men to have their heroes as long as it's kept in its proper perspective. For this is a very important time in a young boy's life when his father's input will have a great deal of bearing on how his son views life and how he reacts to the adversities in life. And one of the most devastating and painful time in a young boy's life is when he finds out that his hero has feet of clay and has fallen from grace in the public's perception of him. And knowing that fact to be true, it's very important that the father talk to his son, especially his teenage son, and remind him that he is growing into manhood, and it's crucial that he follow the advice that is found in 1 Corinthians, the 13th chapter, and the 11th verse. It's like this: "When I was a child, I spoke and thought and reasoned as a child does. But when I became a man, my thoughts grew far beyond those of my childhood, and now I have put away the childish things." And the father should instill into his son's consciousness the importance of putting his faith and trust in only one thing, the only thing which will stand the test of time and will not disappoint him, and that's his faith and trust in God. A divine truth that a very famous father passed on to his son when King David told his son Solomon, a truth that we can share in the 118th Psalm and the 8th and 9th verses. "It is better to trust in the Lord than to put confidence in men. It is better to take refuge in him than in the mightiest king." And just as King David saw the importance of keeping the lines of communication open through periodic talks between himself and his sons, I also see the importance of keeping those lines of communication open with periodic talks with my two sons, David Woods Jr. and Devin Woods. And as a result of one such meeting recently, and the things we discussed, I was impressed by the Holy Spirit to come up with the ideal for this sermon. The ideal revolving around the theme of man's inconsistency in his worship of God. Now, people have a tendency to give lip service concerning their love and their allegiance toward God, but it's not the unconditional love and commitment to him that God really wants. They want to put conditions on their relationship with the Lord and establish perimeters by which they are to operate in. In other words, they want to do it their way instead of God's way. And Jesus Christ himself speaks about this condition to us in the 15th chapter of St. Matthew and the 8th and 9th verses. "These people say they honor me, but their hearts are far away. Their worship is worthless, for they teach their man-made laws instead of those from God." And God is very emphatic when it comes to your obedience to his will. And he makes that fact very clear to us in the 12th chapter of Ecclesiastes and the 13th and 14th verse. "Here is my final commandment. Fear God and obey his commandments, for this is the entire duty of man. For God will judge us for everything we do, including every hidden thing, whether good or bad." And during my discussion with my son David, one of the things we came to an agreement on was the fact that if a person relegates God to any other position other than number one in their life, and if God is not the cornerstone and center of their life, then the sin of idolatry will get a foothold in their life. There will be a void that God once filled will then become occupied by a false god, which will be satanic in nature. And the Apostle Paul warns us in 1 Corinthians, the 10th chapter, and the 14th